Okay, so welcome. This is my Lab 1 for my NT2540 course taught at ITT Tech. These are the labs that we're focusing on for Lab 1. Very important. Lab 1. We're looking at interface statuses 4, 6. We're going to be doing a router configuration process, the Router CLI Exec mode 1 and 2, setting up a router's password, and rebuilding a configuration. I already posted them as announcements. I've also went ahead and already logged into our online simulator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up my library. And again, here's the simulator that we're using. We are not doing this in Packet Tracer. I'm going to go ahead and open my simulation. I've posted these, but just in case. Part 4, implementing IP version 4, chapter 15, and those are the labs. So I'm going to sort by chapter. Part 4, chapter 15. And I'm going to start with interface status 5. You'll notice it already says complete. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move on to interface 6. You click on it. It keeps changing as I mouse over other things. But I want to start interface 6. Click start lab. Give it a second. It will then spin up our lab. And you start with step 1. Connect to R2 from the simulator interface and log in. So I'm going to click on R2, tap enter a few times, and the password is Cisco Press. Notice I'm in a user mode. Then I want to go ahead and go to my enable mode. Type in the appropriate password. I'm on step 2. Step 3, I'm going to do a show interface. Before we were looking at before we were looking at very broad, we were doing show interface. Before we were doing a show IP interface brief. And you'll notice this doesn't give us a whole lot of detail. This is just giving us a general overview. So now I want to do a show interface fast Ethernet 0/0. This will give us a detailed outlook. Its address, its reliability, its load, its sending and receiving, its keep alive, its MAC address. This gives us detailed information. So examine the output and write down the interface state below. Show interface. First thing that we get is it's down and the protocol line is down. So that means it's down and down. Let's check my answers to make sure. And it means that the router is not able to send and receive frames on that interface because it's not up. So step 4. So the fast Ethernet 00 interface is connected to FA01 on the switch. So we're looking at this interface here. And now we're talking about the FA01 interface on switch 2. So what it wants us to do is, let's go ahead and hop over to switch 2 so we can do something. Well, why are we doing that? We're doing that because status is down, protocol is down. Not administratively down, but just down. This only works if both sides are turned on. Because this side is not administratively down, we know that this side is not turned off. Meaning, on the other side of our cable, this cable right here, our switch may be, or our interface may be down. So let's go ahead and log into switch 2. You click on it. Notice our things will change. let's go ahead and get logged in. Enable. And again, I want to do a show IP int brief. It does not like that. Okay, so this router may not have that specific command. But you know what? That is okay. So once we connected, we're on step 5. Let's verify the status. So I was trying to do a general overview, but we could always do the actual interface, fast Ethernet. So instead of looking at all the interfaces for this switch, I'm looking at just FA01. Show interface fast Ethernet 0/1. Its status is administratively down. It's not up because we didn't issue the no command on FA0/1 on switch 2. Because again, we turned it off. So let's go ahead. We're moving on to step 6. Let's enter our global configuration mode. So configure terminal. And now we're going to navigate to that interface. So interface fast Ethernet 0/1. We're going to go ahead and turn it on. No shutdown. Okay, so I'm sorry, I have to point this out. When we are entering the interface subconfiguration mode, we have to be very careful with this word, subconfiguration. We are configuring this interface. That is not the same thing as a sub interface. That's coming later down the line, so I wanted to point that out. So you notice after 30-ish seconds, you'll notice that this changed up. Why is that? I want to do another show interface fast Ethernet 0/1, and you'll notice it's now up and up, so we should be good to go. So verify the status. Let's see. It's up and up because we turned it on. Oh, it actually wants us to do a show interface status. My bad. Show interface status. All right, this is a weird switch because show IP interface brief would also point this out. Notice it says connected. It will give you its duplex, its speed, all of that good stuff. It should show you all of the interfaces. And we already did that command. We did that up here to verify it was up and up. And check my answer again. And we are done with that lab. So when you're done, click on Home. Or, I take that back. I forget with these labs, grade lab. Once you get a score of 100, meaning you've done all the steps, exit out. Now go home. Yes. Notice they're both complete now. What I'm looking for when you submit this is I'm looking for, did you complete all of the posted labs? That's all I'm looking for. Okay, moving on, I'm going to go hop to the Router CLI configuration process, the next lab. I'm going to click Start. And again, I'm going to go through the steps. So step 1, connect to R1's console port using the simulator and press Enter. Notice we're at a user prompt. We did not have to do a password or anything, meaning a password is not set up. So let's go ahead and type enable. That gets us to our exec mode. And from here, we're going to enter global configuration mode, so configure terminal. Again, notice no passwords or anything. We're going to set the host name or the router name to R1. Notice it immediately took effect. Here the router name is router. After host name we did R1, and there it is. Just in case you're not sure if that actually worked, let's do router underscore. So again, host name space the router or the actual name you want to name it. That's how you do it. Alright, so that's done. R1. It immediately accepts it. So notice we're in the configuration mode. Let's go ahead and hit Control Z. Let's see what happens. Notice it kicks you all the way back out to exec mode. Let's do a show run config. This will look at the current running config. Alright, so if it doesn't like you doing show run config, that's because a lot of simulators don't like it. Normally will allow you to show running -configuration, but a lot of actual devices will allow you to do show run config, and it recognizes it. But let's just do show run. It will show you the current. I'm gonna make my screen a little bit bigger. This will be the current running configuration. Interfaces, anything that's set up, the lines, all of that. That's different from the startup config. The startup config is what will load at startup. And you'll notice, if you keep scrolling up, here is the hostname R1 command that set our hostname. So can I see the hostname command? Yes, I can. So, step 4, let's use the reload. We did not save our configuration yet. So when asked if you want to save the configuration, click no. So we're deleting our running configuration and we are restarting. And normally with a real router, this may take a second or two. So just kind of be patient. Okay, so when you're ready, I did notice that my screen just kind of stopped at that point. I tapped enter a few times and we are good to go. So let's go ahead and let's do a show run. Sorry, we're in a user mode, so we can't do that because we don't have the privileges to do a show run at this command. We actually have to go to an R exec mode. Notice the prompts. The prompts mean something. We can do our show run here. And notice no host name. No matter where we look there, no host name. Notice our host name reverted back to router. So, do we see that hostname R1? No, we don't, because we were looking at our running config and we never saved our running config. So when we reloaded it or we restarted it, it was loading off of the startup config. So at the command prompt, what is the hostname now? It's router. And that's the end of this lab. Thank you. So let's click on grade. It did not like the fact that I did a host name router underscore 1. That's an extra command. That's what it says, extra. But all of the commands that we did, it did show that we accepted it. Score is 100%, so we are good. we can move on to the next lab with this next arrow. So double check that our labs are lining up. We just completed that lab. So we're moving on to this lab here, the Router CLI Exec mode. And that's what the name of the router, or the name of the lab says, so we are good to go. Okay, so let's connect to R1. Let's go ahead and question mark. Let's see what we have. Look for reload and show. We have show. You notice we don't have reload. Let's go ahead and enter enable. Let's do question mark. And you'll notice reload is there. So is show. Because again, this is a hierarchy. I apologize. I don't know why we're doing these labs backwards, but I'm just following the guide that I have that I'm supposed to do. But normally we cover how to use the question mark first. But here we have different commands that we did not have here because again, our caret is a user mode and our pound is a exec mode. So we did not get prompted for a password. When you are in privileged mode, did we see both commands? Yes, we did. Move back to our user mode by either doing exit or we can do disable. Either command works. Issue the reload command at our user mode. It doesn't work because it doesn't exist here. Notice that if you try doing a command that it does recognize in the wrong area, you may get a looking up the command, translating this command, that DNS server. It's trying to look up what the heck you meant. In a real router, this can take anywhere between a minute and 3 minutes. It's a punishment for typing in the wrong thing. So we've already done step 7. We've already done steps 8. Okay, you'll notice if we just type in a bunch of random stuff, it'll do the same thing. Notice that if we go to our user mode and we type reload, it works. That's because the command exists in that mode. And that's it for this lab. Let's click on Grade Lab. We did all of them. We're good. Let's move on to the next lab. Are you Grade Lab? 100%? Okay, I didn't answer all the questions. So I'm going to go and answer them real quick. No. No. It rejected the command because it doesn't exist. Now I'm going to move on. Yes, I'm sure. If you don't fill in the answers, you get a incomplete. So now we should be on our Router CLI exec mode 2. All right, step 1, let's connect R1, so double click on it. Let's get into our terminal. Let's go ahead and enter our privilege or exec mode. Enable. Again, no password just yet. So did we have a password? No. Let's go ahead and do a show version. So we actually get to see our version, what we're running, the actual version, the release, the bootstrap, the actual where it's stored, the actual ISO bin, all of that good stuff. If we have specific licensing, if we have a serial number for that licensing. So record the ISO version. That is our ISO version. From the same command prompt, let's go ahead. What is the name of the file in flash memory? That's the actual name. Here's where it's stored. But here's the bin file. The file name is not flash 0 : that. That is the location. What is the last reload time? So let's look through here. Registering, licensing for encryption, system returned to ROM by reloading at that time. So you'll notice it's the 7th line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. Issue the command ping. Let's go ahead and ping 10.1.1.1. Notice this prompt, it is successful. Does it show 5 exclamation marks? Yes. If it doesn't, that means not all of them are successful. Use the show IP ARP command. That way we could see the MAC addresses and the age and the interfaces where they were learned. And there's the address we just pinged, so yes it does. Let's go ahead and let's ping all of them again. Oh, helps if I spell this correctly. Let's ping PC1. Let's ping PC2. And they all work. You'll already know that we have MAC addresses up here. And so we are good to go. Let's click on Grade Lab. Should show 100%. Let's move on to our next lab. Yes, we're sure. This one should be setting up a router password. So we're now currently on this. We just completed these labs. So we only have 2 labs to go. So let's go ahead and connect to R1, which we already did. Let's tap enter a few times. Let's go to our global configuration mode. So we're in exec mode now. Let's go configure terminal. Now we're in our global mode. Let's go ahead and go where to set a password for our console. It's not an interface. It's a line. So line console. Well, what number? Well, if we have multiple consoles, they'd be numbered 0, 1, 2, 3. But since we only have one, we're actually looking at line console 0. Notice the prompt changes to config-line. That means we're configuring that interface, that line interface. So we can turn on a password by typing password and then the type of password that you want. Cisco press. That's a plain text password, but you issue the command password to let it know that it is doing a password. Next, login. Use the login console mode so that you can tell the router to require a simple password when we connect to the console. For this lab, you will be configuring 2 different passwords. Enable password and enable password that's called secret. And there is a reason. All right, let's go and back out to our global config mode. So let's make sure this works. I'm going to Control Z back all the way out. But you'll notice we're still at a exec prompt. So I want to go back up one more. Now I get prompted for a password. Let's type the password we put in. So now we're going to type enable. Notice our enable just lets us right in. Well, why is that? That's because we never had set a enabled password. So let's do that now. Let's go to global configuration. Let's do enable. Oh, ambiguous command, because enable, or multiple commands start with en, so enable password Cisco. So what does that do? Well, let's go ahead, exit all the way out. So we have a prompt at our login now. We're at user mode. Let's go to our global config, or let's go to our enable mode. Notice we get a prompt now. So now we're in. But notice we had a password for our console. We have a password for our enable mode. But what happens if someone is able to get in and see what we have? Let's do a show run. You'll notice service password encryption is turned off, and in our configuration, our password is just there. It's just plain text. It's right there, clear as day. Well, we don't want that. Let's do a different one. Let's do enable secret. Oh, sorry. Let's go to our global configuration mode, because we can't do enabled passwords at the exec mode. Enable secret. I'm going to set the same password, Cisco, press. It's smart enough to recognize that the passwords for my password and my secret are the same. So you'll get this, hey, what's going on? So let's go back one. Let's do a show run. And you'll notice our secret password gives us a hash, not the actual password. So I wanted to point that out because that's really important for people to understand the difference between enabled password and enabled secret. Because if I don't do the steps directly like our thing allows us, it gets kind of funky. I'm going to go back to my global config mode, and I'm going to reset up my enable password with Fred. I'm going to re-enable my secret, Barney. Notice we didn't get the prompt saying, hey, these passwords are the same, because here they're different. Let's exit all the way out. So we're just sitting at a brand new login. So the login password, the very initial still Cisco press to get into our user mode. To get into our enable mode though, what password do we use? Does Fred work? Does Barney work? Any of them will work. I type Fred. Nope, Fred didn't work. Well, why didn't Fred work? That's because our more secretive password, Barney, takes precedence. So let's do a show command, show run. So Fred should work, but you'll notice that our secret's there. So it's actually going to look for that password first. So does the password Cisco Press work? No, it doesn't, because we changed it. When we do our enable password, oh, sorry, this one is our initial login one. Yes, it should work, because only our enable password has changed. And I use Barney to log in. And that should be it. It's really interesting because this password policy, these passwords, really are important. Let's create our lab. Those are extra, but we did all the appropriate commands. Score is 100%. Let's move on to our next lab. Yes, we are sure we want to move on. Our last lab due is rebuild a configuration. So let's go ahead and connect to R2. Let's go ahead and get to our global configuration mode. Notice no passwords are configured, so that's an issue. So we actually want to use the line VTY where we actually want to set up our virtual terminal lines so that our virtual connections can be password protected. So line VTY 0 space 4. And here we're going to go ahead and set up our appropriate passwords. So which of the moves the user mode from the VTY line, which is controlling Telnet and SSH connections. What did the command prompt look like after we got there? We're looking for a line. Next, we actually want to do a login local. That's going to say, where is the username and password, if we're setting one, going to be? That's going to be local. So we're on step 5. Let's go ahead and set transport rules. If we're wanting to use Telnet or SSH, we can set a transport input rule. So transport input, well, which ones do we want? Here it's telling just Telnet or Telnet and SSH. You can restrict it based off of that. If you want just SSH, transport input SSH. If you want just Telnet, transport input Telnet. If you set both, you can actually log in either way. So now let's go ahead and create a username on R2. We're sitting here at a line. Let's go ahead and exit so we go back to our global config. And to create a user, we type in username R2-user and the password for that user, Cisco Press. That way, login local will say to look at the local device for our users. There it is. All right, configure domain is, we could actually set up a IP domain name if we want. IP domain name. If we want to get our router part of our domain, that's how we would do it. Since we also did SSH, we may also want to generate a crypto key. So let's go ahead and do that next. We do that by doing a crypto key generate RSA key. How many bits? We could do it between 360 and 4096. Normally I'd say to the 4096, but in our lab, it's telling us to do 512, which is the default, which that's a bad idea, but here we generated our RSA key. So let's go ahead and test our configuration. So using the simulated interface, connect to our console of router 1. So let's go to router 1. Let's go ahead and type in SSH -L R2 user, the IP address of the device, it will ask for our password, and you'll notice we've virtually connected to router 2 through router 1. Notice our prompts have changed. So if we set a enable password on router 2, we could be doing our secured connection here. Let's go ahead and do a show IP int brief. This is going to show the interfaces for R2. And that's actually the end of this lab. I totally just realized we are supposed to be doing the rebuild a configuration lab, and I just did a walkthrough for configuring SSH. That's why just clicking the next lab button doesn't always work. Since I've already done it, that was my bad. Let's go ahead and click on home. Let's go do the appropriate lab we're supposed to be doing. I do apologize. There it is. The next lab would be the rebuilding a configuration. I was wondering why all the steps were kind of weird. So again, I do apologize. Here we have a little bit more lengthy of a lab with 35 steps, but we should be able to hammer this out fairly quickly. So let's connect R1. Okay, that's weird. Oh, I just kind of fat fingering it. Let's get to our enable, or let's get into our exec mode so we can do a show run. Notice the password's going to be encrypted. Notice we're looking for IPs, for host names, passwords. Here we have IPs for Fast Ethernet 0. So those are non-default. Those are non-default. Oh, here we have a router protocol configured OSPF 10 with a default network connecting to area 0. So that's all different. We have a login password. So we have a few things. So let's go and connect to PC1. And let's try to ping a network. So ping 10.21.0.1. It did work. So yes, it worked. Again from PC1, let's try to ping our gateway address, or the address of our router, which again is alright, so I'm going to try to ping our gateway. And notice it's timed out. But you'll notice my IP address is 10.21.0.1. Am I part of the same network? I may not be, because it all depends on our subnet mask. No, it did not work, because you'll notice the third octet, 10.21.1 dot whatever's in the fourth octet, they're different between my router, switch, and my PC. So there's a problem there. So let's connect to PC2. Let's try to do the same thing. So let's ping 23.0.2, which is myself. It worked. Let's try to ping my default gateway, 23.2.2. It also worked. But why are they different? Here, the subnet mask may be different than the subnet mask over here. So this subnet mask may allow for the third octet to be changed, or one may not. So find the default gateway settings for 2. What is the IP address? According to the figure, let's move back to R1 from the simulator. Let's click on the erase startup config so we can reload it. So erase startup configuration. Are we sure? Yes. Let's go ahead and click on reload. Don't save it. So no. Are you sure you want to restart? Yes. Oh. So when we restarted it, we have a blank router now. So we'll get a initial configuration wizard, and we'll ask if it wants us to do it. So no, we don't want to do the initial configuration through the wizard. We want to do it ourselves. Tap enter a few times, and now we have a blank configured router for us to configure. Let's go ahead and hit enter, which I already did. We're going to go ahead and we're going to move through the rest of the steps to reconfigure the router. So first thing we have to do is get into our configuration mode. So now we're in our exec mode. Now we're in our global configuration mode. All right, so let's go ahead, type hostname. Oh, incomplete command. And that's because hostname is only part of the command. Probably hostname R1. That way we change the name to the appropriate command. So hostname R1. So configure the global command that tells the router not to attempt to ask for DNS name resolution. We haven't covered this yet, but luckily I already know these. So no IP domain -lookup. Oh, helps if I spell lookup correctly. Configure the password used to reach the privilege mode. Choose the configuration. So here we're looking to reach the privilege mode. That means enable. Enable secret. We could also do enable password. Oops. Helps if I spell it correctly. That way, we're doing the most secured possible. Move to the configuration for which you can configure the console password. Remember, that's line con 0. And let's go ahead and set the password to Cisco Press. I'm going to do this at login. So ask the user for a password so that it requires Cisco Press. Move to the configuration mode to configure the passwords used when R1 accepts Telnet. That's going to be line VTY04. And same thing, we want to set password to Cisco Press and transport input Telnet SSH. So let's move to the configuration so we can configure effing 0/0. We're going to do that by going back to our global configuration. And we're going to type in interface fast Ethernet 0/0. Notice the prompt's going to change to a -if. Let's configure the appropriate address. So IP address for this one is going to be 10.21.1.1. But what's subnet mask? We're only getting partial information. Notice our subnet mask was 255.255.0.0. And let's make sure to do a description. Description LAN connection. That way when you go through this later, you'll remember, oh, that interface connects to our LAN. So let's go ahead and move down to the configuration so we can configure the serial interface. So interface serial 0/0. Oh, I did one too many zeros. We're going to do IP address. This should be 10.22.1.1. But again, what subnet mask? Here we're using a 255.255.0.0. And we're doing a description saying connection to R2. And that way it's labeled. We also need to set a clock rate, which this is new, clock space rate 1536000, because serial interfaces require clock. Next, we have to configure our OSPF. So router OSPF 10. I happen to remember that was OSPF 10. Network. What networks are we going to be doing? That's why it's imperative that you remember what the previous settings were. And here we're looking at network 10.0.0.0. What's changing? The second, third, and fourth octet. And it's all part of area 0. So step 25, let's go ahead and save this. So we have to go all the way back to our exec mode. We save it by copy, run, start. Are you sure you want to save it? Yes, we are. So let's go ahead and go back to the configuration mode and then move to our correct mode for configuring details about FA 0/0. So config T. Interface fast Ethernet 0/0. So issue the command to administratively enable it. No shut. That turns it on. Because we did them, but we never actually turned them on. So yes, it showed that it turned up. Now we need to do the same thing on step 29 to our serial interface. No shut. We have to make sure it's turned on and showing up. So do this. Yes, they do. Move back to the enable mode and do a show IP route. And here we have our routes. And L is local, C is connected, and why is our OSPF router or our OSPF route not there? What subnets are listed? Oh, no, there we go. O is learned by OSPF, and that guy is learned via the serial interface. So let's connect back to our PC1. Let's see if we can ping now. Let's see if, first of all, we can ping ourselves. Yes, we can. Can we ping our default router or gateway now? Yes, we can, because now we're using a /16, meaning only the first two octets are logged in. 255s log in octets. So when there's a 255.255.0.0, that locks in the first two octets. And you'll notice here 10.21, 10.21, so the first two are locked in. So that means the third and fourth ones can change. Did the ping work? Yes, it did. Yes, it did. From PC1, can we ping PC2? Ping 10.23.0.2. And it should also work because we set up OSPF to share routes between these two. And that is the end of this lab. Let's click Grade Lab just to make sure. It did not like my descriptions because I did not do them word for word. I did my description LAN connection, and I misspelled connection. And my other description, connection R2. So again, I'm not looking at the score. I'm making sure that we're able to get through all of this. But you know what? Just so that I make sure I'm getting 100%, I'm going to go ahead and correct those. Configure terminal, line, console 0, login, line, UTY, 0 through 4, login. Also, I want to go to my interface. I'm going to change my description to the appropriate description, interface, serial, That way, when I click grade lab, I get 100%. Again, I'm not looking at did you complete it, or I'm not looking at the score. I'm looking at did you actually complete the lab. I'm going to exit out. I'm going to go home. Are you sure you want to close? Yes, I am. I'm looking at our worksheet. Did we have complete for those labs? Yes, we did. Screenshot, submit. That's all I need. Thank you.